Hello, everyone. Today, Into the Depths of Mystery invites you to explore one of the deepest mysteries of human existence. Is there something after death? Thousands of people around the world who have had near-death experiences claim to have had extraordinary experiences that suggest our consciousness may continue beyond our physical bodies. These near-death experiences, or NDEs, share striking similarities regardless of the age, culture, or religious beliefs of the individuals involved. Let's dive into these fascinating testimonies together. Let's talk about the common characteristics of a near-death experience. Studies conducted by researchers such as Dr. Raymond Moody, who popularized the term near-death experience in his book, Life After Life in 1975, have revealed several recurring elements in these testimonies include the sensation of leaving one's body, passing through a tunnel, encountering an intense light, the presence of guide or being of light, a life review, a feeling of peace and deep love, a border or limit that cannot be crossed.
I was in my car when a truck hit me. Suddenly, I found myself above my body. I could see the paramedics bustling around me. I could hear their conversations, see details I shouldn't have been able to perceive. Then I was drawn into a luminous tunnel. At the end, an extraordinary light welcomed me with indescribable love. My grandfather, deceased for years, was there to guide me. He told me it wasn't my time and that I had to go back. I woke up in the hospital 3 days later with very precise memories of this experience.
During my operation, my heart stopped for nearly 4 minutes. I felt myself floating above the operating table. I could see the doctors trying to resuscitate me. What's troubling is that I was able to describe afterwards technical details of the instruments used and report conversations between the doctors that I shouldn't have been able to hear. Then I crossed this tunnel of light where I felt incredible peace. I met luminous beings who showed me moments from my life, not to judge me but to make me understand the impact of my actions on others.
The AWARE study, Awareness During Resuscitation, conducted by Dr. Sam Parnia and published in the journal Resuscitation in 2014, constitutes one of the most rigorous research on this phenomenon. This multi-center study followed 2,060 patients who suffered cardiac arrest in 15 hospitals across the United Kingdom, the United States, and Austria. Among the survivors, 9% reported a near-death experience. A particularly remarkable element of this study was the placement of images positioned high in resuscitation rooms, visible only by someone who would float near the ceiling. Among the testimonies collected, one patient was able to describe with precision these images and other elements that occurred during his resuscitation, while clinically, his brain activity was non-existent. Dr. Bruce Grayson, psychiatrist at the University of Virginia and pioneer researcher in this field for over 40 years, has developed the Grayson scale, a scientific instrument for measuring and qualifying NDEs. His research published in the Journal of Nervous and Mental Disease demonstrated that NDEs don't correspond to psychological profiles of hallucinations, delusions, or dreams. Professor Pim van Lommel, Dutch cardiologist, conducted a prospective study on 344 patients who survived cardiac arrest, published in the prestigious journal The Lancet in 2001. This study revealed that 18% of survivors reported an NDE. The 8-year follow-up showed that these experiences had a profound and lasting impact on the subjects' personalities, with a significant decrease in fear of death and an increase in empathy. Research conducted at the University of Michigan in 2013 discovered a surprising increase in brain activity in the 30 seconds following cardiac arrest in rats. This hyperactivity, particularly in regions associated with consciousness and vision, could be linked to experiences reported during NDEs. Dr. Kevin Nelson from the University of Kentucky proposes that NDEs might be related to the intrusion of a REM sleep-like state into waking consciousness during extreme stress situations. This theory explains certain aspects of NDEs, but struggles to justify the veridical perceptions reported by patients. In 2017, a team from the University of Southampton led by Dr. Sam Parnia discovered that consciousness can persist for several minutes after clinical death, potentially allowing patients to perceive their environment even when doctors declare them dead. What we observe suggests that consciousness is not immediately annihilated at the moment of death, and that what patients report might reflect a real experience. Dr. Stuart Hameroff, anesthesiologist and professor at the University of Arizona, and Sir Roger Penrose, mathematical physicist and Nobel Prize laureate, have developed a theory of orchestrated objective reduction orchestroir, which proposes that consciousness might reside at the quantum level in neuron microtubules. This theory suggests that consciousness information could persist at the quantum level after biological death. Quantum physicist Henry Stapp from the University of California at Berkeley has also proposed that consciousness might be fundamentally non-local in the quantum sense, which would offer a potential explanation for the continuation of consciousness beyond the physical body. One of the most documented and studied cases is that of Pam Reynolds. In 1991, this musician underwent surgery for a giant brain aneurysm. During the intervention, she was placed in deep hypothermia. Her body cooled to 15.5 degrees Celsius. Her heart was stopped, and her blood drained from her brain. By all medical standards, she was clinically dead. Yet, after awakening, she was able to describe with stunning precision the course of the operation, including conversations between surgeons, instruments used, notably a surgical saw she described as resembling an electric toothbrush, and even the music playing in the operating room. All of this was verified and confirmed by the medical team. During this period of clinical death, Pam also reported having met deceased family members and crossed a tunnel of light before being informed that she had to return to her body. What makes this case particularly remarkable is that during the operation, her eyes were bandaged, her ears plugged with plugs emitting clicks at 100 decibels, and her brain activity was constantly monitored and showed a total absence of activity. In 1977, at Seattle Hospital, a social worker named Kimberly Clark reported the case of a patient named Maria. After cardiac arrest, Maria claimed to have floated out of her body and observed her resuscitation. She then stated she had floated to the third floor of the hospital, where she noticed a blue tennis shoe on a window ledge, with a lace caught under the heel and visible where near the little toe. Intrigued, Kimberly Clark went to check and indeed found the shoe exactly as Maria had described it, in a place impossible to see from inside the building, and certainly not by a patient confined to her coronary unit bed. Al Sullivan, an automobile mechanic, underwent coronary bypass surgery in 1988. During the operation, he reported having left his body and observed the surgeon waving his arms bizarrely, with his elbows near his body, as if he were flapping wings. After the operation, he confronted his surgeon with this observation. The surgeon, astounded, confirmed that he indeed had this very particular habit. After washing his hands and before putting on his sterile gloves, he placed his hands near his chest and gave instructions to the team while waving his elbows, a gesture he had developed during his training and that few people outside the operating room knew about. Western philosophy has long debated the mind-body duality. René Descartes proposed that mind and body are distinct substances that interact. This Cartesian perspective finds an echo in NDE accounts, where consciousness seems capable of existing independently of the body. Plato, in The Republic, tells the myth of air, a soldier left for dead on the battlefield, who comes back to life after 12 days to recount his journey to the afterlife. This account presents striking similarities with modern NDEs, suggesting that these experiences have been observed since antiquity. Air described how his soul had left his body and traveled with other souls to a divine place, where they contemplated the structure of the universe and the destiny of souls. Philosopher Henri Bergson proposed that the brain might act not as a producer of consciousness, but as a reducer or filter that limits our perception of reality to what is necessary for our biological survival. In this perspective, NDEs might represent a moment when this filter is temporarily suspended. Buddhist and Hindu traditions have contained for millennia detailed descriptions of intermediate states between life and death. The Bardo Thodol, or Tibetan Book of the Dead, dating from the 8th century, describes post-death experiences at present striking parallels with modern NDEs, notably the encounter with primordial clear light and spiritual beings. In the Islamic Sufi tradition, Mystical experiences similar to NDEs are described as encounters with the imaginal world, a realm intermediate between the material world and the purely spiritual world. Swedish mystic Emanuel Swedenborg, 1688 to 1772, documented his spiritual journeys to the afterlife with precision that remarkably recalls contemporary NDE accounts, describing luminous dimensions populated by spiritual beings. Dr. Kenneth Ring, psychologist and founder of the International Association for Near-Death Studies, has conducted in-depth studies on personal transformations after an NDE. His research revealed remarkably consistent changes in subjects. Significant decrease in fear of death, 98% of cases. Increased appreciation of life, 80%. Enhanced spiritual development independent of previous religious beliefs, 85%. Increased empathy and compassion, 76%. Increased attachment for material goods, 65%. Heightened sensitivity to extrasensory perceptions, 55%. These changes are generally lasting and profound, persisting decades after the initial experience. Many people also report physiological changes after an NDE. Increased sensitivity to medications and chemical substances, disruptions of electronic devices in proximity, enhanced perception of electromagnetic fields, development of intuitive or mediumistic abilities, modifications in sleep-wake rhythm. Dr. Melvin Morse, pediatrician and researcher, has studied NDEs in children and discovered that these physiological changes were particularly pronounced in young subjects, suggesting a real neurobiological impact of these experiences. Dan Ion Brinkley was struck by lightning in 1975 while telephoning during a storm. Declared clinically dead for 28 minutes, he reported an extraordinarily detailed NDE, including a life review, meeting beings of light, and prophetic visions of the future. After his resuscitation, Brinkley developed psychic abilities he didn't possess before. But even more remarkable, doctors found that his tissues didn't show the cellular damage normally associated with such a prolonged period of anoxia, oxygen deprivation. This medical anomaly remains unexplained by conventional science. Neuroscientist Christoph Koch and philosopher David Chalmers have proposed that consciousness might be a fundamental property of the universe, like space, time, or matter-energy. This perspective, called panpsychism, suggests that consciousness wouldn't be produced by the brain, but rather channeled by it. Theoretical physicist Sir Roger Penrose, in collaboration with Dr. Stuart Hameroff, proposes that consciousness emerges from quantum processes in neuron microtubules. This theory, though controversial, offers a framework in which consciousness could theoretically persist after biological death. Consciousness might be a quantum phenomenon, and as such, subject to laws that transcend our classical understanding of physics and biology. Philosopher and psychologist William James proposed the transmission hypothesis, according to which the brain might act as a transmitter or filter of consciousness rather than as its producer. According to this perspective, consciousness would exist independently of the brain, the latter serving simply to focus and limit it for our terrestrial existence. This hypothesis has been taken up and developed by contemporary researchers like Dr. Bruce Grayson and Dr. Sam Parnia, who suggest that NDEs might be moments when this filter is temporarily lifted, allowing a broader perception of reality. Quantum physicist Henry Stapp and neurologist Mario Beauregard have proposed a non-local consciousness model, suggesting that consciousness wouldn't be confined to brain, but would exist in an information field that transcends conventional space-time. This model relies on the concept of quantum entanglement, where particles separated by great distances can instantaneously influence each other's state, applied to consciousness. This theory could explain how consciousness could persist in a non-local state after physical death. A particularly intriguing phenomenon is that of shared death experiences, documented by Dr. Raymond Moody and researcher William Peters. In these cases, people present at the bedside of a dying person report sharing elements of their NDE, vision of light, perception of spiritual beings, or even partial accompaniment of the dying person on their journey. In 2008, a palliative care nurse reported seeing a light envelop her dying patient. then feeling herself drawn into this light, where she met deceased family members of the patient she had never seen, but whom she could describe with precision afterward. Dr. Peter Fenwick, British neuropsychiatrist, and Dr. Christopher Kerr, palliative care physician, have documented thousands of cases of deathbed visions. These studies show that more than 80% of conscious dying people report seeing deceased loved ones who come to fetch them, often in the days or hours before their death. What's remarkable is that these visions differ clinically from hallucinations caused by medications or dehydration. They are coherent, comforting, and almost always involve significant deceased persons. In some documented cases, dying people have seen people they believe were still alive, but who had actually died without them being informed. Dr. Ian Stevenson from the University of Virginia spent more than 40 years documenting over 3,000 cases of children who seemed to remember past lives. These memories generally appear between ages 2 and 5 and fade after age 7. In many cases, these memories could be verified with troubling precision. For example, a child remembering dying in a motorcycle accident could describe precise details of their past life: name, profession, place of residence, circumstances of death, details then confirmed by historical documents. What's particularly interesting in connection with NDEs is that some of these children describe a period between lives that presents striking similarities with NDE accounts: light, spiritual beings, and choice to return to a physical body. NDEs invite us to a deeper dialogue between science and spirituality. As physicist and philosopher of science Thomas Kuhn emphasized, scientific paradigms evolve when confronted with anomalies they cannot explain within their current framework. NDEs represent precisely this type of anomaly for our dominant materialist paradigm. They invite us to broaden our understanding of consciousness and reality, not by rejecting the scientific method, but by applying it rigorously to phenomena that challenge our assumptions. Science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of spirituality. Carl Sagan. Institutions like the Galileo Commission, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia are working to develop a more inclusive scientific framework that can integrate subjective experiences like NDEs into our understanding of consciousness. This research suggests we might be at the dawn of a major paradigm shift in our understanding of consciousness, comparable to the quantum revolution that transformed physics in the early 20th century. Faced with coherent testimonies from thousands of people across cultures and epochs, and increasingly solid scientific data that accompanies them, NDEs invite us to epistemic humility, the recognition that our current understanding of consciousness and reality might be incomplete. As philosopher of science Thomas Nagel wrote, "The impossibility of reducing subjective experience to physical facts doesn't mean that consciousness doesn't exist or that it can't be studied scientifically. It rather means that our conception of physical reality is incomplete." Near-death experiences invite us to an intellectual and spiritual journey beyond the usual boundaries of our understanding. While science hasn't yet definitively settled on their nature, these numerous, coherent, and often verifiable testimonies suggest that our human experience might be infinitely vaster and deeper than what our materialist worldview lets us glimpse. As psychiatrist Carl Jung wrote after his own NDE following a heart crisis in 1944, "What I experienced is so extraordinary, so indescribably grand that I can only speak of in illusions. It was as if I had reached the extreme limit of what could be experienced. It was contact with a form of existence beyond our world." These experiences remind us that, despite all our scientific and technological progress, our knowledge remains limited in the face of the mystery of consciousness and existence. They invite us to humility, to open-mindedness, and a recognition that reality might be much richer and more multidimensional than our current conceptual frameworks allow. The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. Marcel Proust. If you have yourself lived a similar experience, or if the subject speaks to you, don't hesitate to share your reflections in the comments. This collective exploration of our deep humanity is perhaps one of the most important quests we can undertake together. I thank you for your attention in this exploration of the frontiers of our consciousness and our existence. Don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell to stay informed of new videos, and click on the blue thumb if you like this video. See you soon into the depths of mystery.